You must surrender yourself to the source, to the music source.
She's a minister's daughter with the stage moves of a heavy metal rocker.
She is a very sensual performer.
She is really getting it on with the piano and the piano bench. The music moves her like a dog in heat.
You bet your life it is.
A porcelain-skinned beauty who drove her career with a will of iron.
She was a bad mother.
Tori's definitely in charge of every aspect of her career. She handles the pressure by taking more on.
Her life has been just a series of struggles.
Tori Amos was playing Mozart in kindergarten, but later, when she tried to play her own music, nobody would listen.
When I was 6, I had it together. It's when I turned 19, 20 that it all fell to pieces.
Her debut album nearly destroyed her reputation.
Why Can't Tori Read was not well received. They couldn't even sell them for 50 cents.
That's gross.
This Billboard article had called me a bimbo. Fair enough.
But instead of calling it quits, Tori forged ahead to find her true voice.
Silent all these years.
She captivated audiences with true life tales, including the story of her own rape.
Was me and a gun and a man on my back.
She would always close her set with Me and a Gun, which is an unbelievably brave thing to do.
Her unbridled confession struck a chord with fans around the world and inspired notorious displays of devotion.
There's a point where you can love somebody just a little too much.
Fanaticism comes to mind, yeah.
You really haven't achieved anything unless you have a good old sociopath following you around.
Now, the story of a rebel who became a role model by doing it all her way. Tori Amos on Behind the Music 2. 'To thousands of adoring fans around the world, Tori Amos isn't just a pop star. She's a close friend whose songs reveal her deepest joys and longings.
There's a part of me, I guess, yeah, in all the songs, and I choose not to extract which is which for people, like when they want to know what percentage is your life experience and can you define it. It's like, you know, that's between me and my shrink.
It's a journey of self-discovery. You know, she goes down every conceivable alternate path that you can think of to kind of tell a story. And, you know, sometimes it's way too far out for people, but it's her way.
God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through.
Those who know Tori best say she's a woman whose personality, like her music, defies definition.
How do you describe the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it?
She's never one person. She's a lot of different people.
A brilliant midget redhead on acid. She is music, mind, body, and soul. It's the most important thing to her.
As she said, music chose me. I really didn't choose it.
Well, hold on to nothing as fast as you can. Well, still pretty good, yeah.
They say artists are made, not born, but Tori Amos might be the exception. She began playing the piano at the age of 2 and learned to sing before she learned to talk.
She was a happy child, always playing the piano and singing, making up songs. Our home was full of music.
Before she was 5, we took her to a couple of musicals. After she had been to those musicals, she came in and played the whole score on the piano.
Tori grew up outside of Washington, D.C., the youngest child of Methodist minister Edison Amos and his wife, Mary. When Tori was 5, she won a scholarship to Baltimore's prestigious Peabody Conservatory, the youngest student ever admitted there.
I think when I was 8, I had it a lot more together than when I was 18 or even 28. There was something that I kind of have always been trying to capture again.
As a child, Tori set her own agenda By age 11, she was mixing Led Zeppelin and the Beatles with Bartók and Beethoven. The professors at Peabody were not amused.
You did classical or you weren't accepted. And therefore, she says they kicked her out. Actually, she didn't get her scholarship again.
I try to explain to them that John Lennon he's like the Bartók of our day. Don't you get that?
Tori left Peabody at age 11, but she continued to play piano up to 8 hours a day. When she turned 13, her dad had an inspiration.
Tori, would you work if I were to get you a job downtown in music? She had not turned 14 then. She jumped up and down and screamed and said, "Daddy, would you?"
Tori got her first job at a club called Henry's, a bar with a gay clientele. As Tori tickled the ivories each night, her parents sat nearby to chaperone. It turned out to be an educational experience for the whole family.
I had never been in a lounge before that time. It was not an easy situation for me.
Reverend Amos, her father, of course, would come in a clerical collar and sit there in the lounge in the evenings. He was always preaching the word of Tori Amos at the time.
He caught a lot of flack from the parish when he took me down there, a lot. He's a real mixture of Billy Graham and James Dean. He sometimes will be walking and I'll just say, you know, I'm glad I met that side of you. And he'll smile and say, me too.
Tori spent 7 years playing at popular DC clubs like Mr. Smith's and the Cellar Door. But her attempts to interest the record industry in her own songs went nowhere.
I was sending out my demo tapes that I did myself, and I got so many letters back I could paste a wall with them. And the piano thing, the girl and her piano thing is over.
Determined to make it on her own, 21-year-old Tori packed up and moved to Los Angeles in 1984. But instead of landing a record deal, she found herself back in the bar scene.
And there was Tori over on like a padded piano, you know, with a big snifter kind of glass in the middle with like dollars in there and stuff, couple bucks in there.
People would spill their beer all over my piano and retch and puke on the side of it and say, will you play After the Lovin' one more time?
It was a real serious drinking bar.
And you're going, oh my God, I'm in hell. My grandmother's getting me back for not being a good little Christian.
In '87, Tori, future Guns N' Roses drummer Matt Sorum, and guitarist Steve Caton put a band together, mixing a trendy new wave sound with an even trendier big hair look. They called the band Why Can't Tori Read?
Tori didn't play piano. She mainly stood there and sang and then had a little string synthesizer.
She had these big boots on, and her hair was all crazy.
I wasn't really finding a piece of me. I was trying to cop a piece of what was being signed at the time.
But when Atlantic Records offered Tori a record deal in '87, she snapped up the chance.
Everybody has a breaking point. I think mine was 7.5 years of rejection letters.
She was sort of put into a mold that they kind of saw would work for that time period. Okay, here we have this girl, we need a beat, and we're gonna have her dance around in a video.
Tori's debut album, Why Can't Tori Read, was released in 1987 and bombed miserably.
Tori still quotes a negative Billboard review she felt wounded by.
This Billboard article had called me a bimbo. Fair enough.
Why Can't Tori Read? You can look back and see there was like a little bit of a spark there, but it was basically third-rate Pat Benatar.
When you gonna make up your mind?
Tori's career as a wannabe rock chick was over. Her real career was about to begin.
Everyone goes through a phase where you want to be something you're not.
I'm a hunter. But I just had to decide, will I hunt anything?
Coming up, Tori lets her hair down.
Instead of putting all my content in my hairspray, and I decided to put it in my work.
Then she shares a terrible truth.
Usually people, end with the, hey, let's go with the hit. And she ends with an a cappella song about, rape.
When BTM2 continues.
I crucify myself. Nothing to do is good enough for you. Crucify
late 80s, Tori Amos had tried to sell her soul for pop success, only to discover that no one was buying.
I had to hit bottom and understand that I was willing to sacrifice any kind of success if I could wake up with my self-respect as a musician. But it had to hit that.
When Joaquin Tori Reed went down the tube, she was totally devastated. Nevertheless, that's one of the best things that ever happened to her, because then she began to write introspective songs.
While living in LA and struggling to find a new direction, Tori met record producer Eric Ross. A musical partnership and a romance quickly blossomed.
She was coming off of the first Bum record, that just bombed out completely and tested her self-worth, self-esteem, all those things.
By '88, Tori and Eric were living and working together in a small Hollywood apartment, laying the groundwork for Tori's solo debut, Little Earthquakes.
Very, very, very limited budget with limited time and limited space. Tiny, tiny, tiny guest house where we had to take all the clothes out of the closet in order to record guitars.
So you found a girl who thinks really deep thoughts. What's so amazing about really deep thoughts? Boy, you best pray that I bleed real soon.
I played Little Earthquakes to Doug Morris, who was the head of Atlantic Records at the time. He looked at me and he said, "What is this?"
Doug Morris knew that he had something that was special and brilliant and different, and he didn't quite know what to do with it.
He looked at me and said, "Now you gotta get out of this country because they're not gonna understand this."
At the suggestion of Atlantic Records, Tori moved to London. There, she hoped to find an audience for her quiet musical confessions.
She was fearless, moved to London, and started literally playing for her supper.
She was living in a very dodgy part of town, traveling to another very dodgy part of town.
There was this place called the Mean Fiddler. I remember just singing to the people that were on after me. And then slowly, 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 there started to be more people.
Within a year, Tori had built a strong following and became the darling of the British music press.
I've been playing clubs for 11 years, 6 nights a week, 2 jobs a night, before Little Earthquakes even made a flutter.
Little Earthquakes set off major tremors. Released in the spring of '92, it sold over 1 million copies. Tori became the alternative to alternative. The centerpiece of Tori's live shows was a song she titled Me and a Gun, a chilling account of a sexual assault she'd kept hidden for years.
It was me and a gun and a man on my back, and I sang Holy, Holy as he buttoned down his pants.
I saw her sing the song, and I just started to cry.
There's a place where when I sing it every night, where I'm just trying to free the demons.
7 years before, while playing in an LA piano bar, Tori had agreed to give a regular customer a ride home. In the car that night, the passenger sexually assaulted her at gunpoint. Tori never told anyone of the attack, not even the police.
Come on, I was a nightclub singer. I dressed sexy. Look, let's not kid each other. My case was closed before I began. I'm really at a place where I believe you can heal. You can heal and yet not forget.
Tori's performance struck a powerful chord. Grateful fans approached her with their own tales of abuse. Tori responded by founding the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, or RAIN, in 1994, an organization which provides free, confidential phone counseling for victims of sexual assault.
In the time it takes you to brush your teeth, 1 woman in America is forcibly raped. Unlock the silence.
In the first 5 years, we had approximately 275,000 phone calls. The good news is it seems to be working. The bad news is there's so many people that are out there that really need help.
It's not about having the answers or needing to make the right comment. Just listening sometimes is what people need to hear that you're really listening to them.
Me and a Gun wasn't the only song Tori wrote to come to grips with her past. The daughter of a minister, she used her musical pulpit to preach her own provocative views about religion.
God, sometimes you just don't come through.
The importance for me is that Mother Mary does have her sexuality, and the Magdalene has her wisdom and her spirituality, and that was circumcised from both of them. And as Christian women, we had to pick one or the other. So, you know, I'm very much a recovering Christian.
She sometimes makes a parody of religion in a humorous way, but it's always to make people think.
My dad really wanted me to write religious music, and he got his wish, I guess.
Why you always go when the wind blows.
Spurred on by songs like God and Cornflake Girl, Tori's second album, Under the Pink, released in '94, became her second platinum pop hit.
Peel out the watchword, just peel out the watchword.
Under the Pink also spelled the end of Tori's romance with producer Eric Ross. In 1995, after 7 years and 2 albums together, they parted ways.
It was mutual. It was a mutual agreement that we needed to do that in order to grow as individuals.
She had a slight devastation, but the devastation of a teenager, more or less, who's lost the love that she had in high school, and what is she gonna do now?
Tori would turn her heartbreak into her next album, and in the process of making it, she would find her true love. Coming up, Confessions of a Road Warrior.
It never was Animal House. I'm not that kind of person. It's about good wine and good food, and I'm not into being a pig at a trough. You know, that doesn't interest me.
When BTM2 continues. In 1996, Tori Amos was channeling her feelings about a broken romance into an album she titled Boys for Pele.
No one's picking up the phone, 'cause it's me and me.
If I wrote, or if anybody else wrote and you went through a breakup, you'd write about it. Something happens to you fairly major, your diary is going to be about that, and her diary is her songs.
To make Boys for Pele, Tori traveled to Ireland. She recorded the album in an ancient church near Dublin with the engineering team of Marcel van Limbeek and Mark Horley.
When we started doing Boys for Pele, we made it at a very stressful time in the process. Very manic redhead.
Busy.
It was like, but as the years have gone on, it's got so much more laid back. And I really think it shows in the work too. She's just so into what she does.
For Tori and Mark, those recording sessions turned out to be the beginning of a beautiful relationship. Boys for Pele went platinum, and Tori and Mark fell in love.
I kind of looked and saw these kind of gorgeous calves walking in the distance, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for me. Tacky, but true.
2 years later, on February 22nd, 1998, Tori and Mark were married. They still work together closely, on the road and in the studio.
He's in there like working his butt off. He's just like, he's in a trance or something. He works with the nuts and bolts, and she works with all the adjectives.
They definitely separate their work and their private life, and they do it very well. You know, they are the couple, and they are the producer-engineer.
We have to get over our arguments before the end of the night, I think, which is a great thing.
Collaborating with Mark, Tori followed Boys for Pele with From the Choir Girl Hotel in '98 and To Venus and Back in '99. She has sold more than 10 million records to date. But her true passion lies in live performance. Averaging over 160 dates a year, Tori is a traveling troubadour, constantly surrounded by a close-knit family of band members and road crew. Most of them have been with her for years.
You know, not everybody hangs out together when we're not touring together. It's not as if they're always having slumber parties to catch up. But there is something that when we're together, the four make a whole.
Tori has surrounded herself with people that she trusts, that she likes, that make life on the road more like a band of gypsies.
She enjoys playing for her fans, and that's what keeps her going, is sharing her music with her fans.
Tori's fans return that devotion in spades.
I think that you can't have the kind of dedication from your fans without giving an awful lot back.
They feel that she can save their life. We are talking about a fan base that goes beyond fans.
They're pretty diehard, you know?
Yeah, you'll be having a great gig and look out in the audience, they'll be like,
right.
Everybody's like,
yeah, there's people there, like a whole row, they're all crying. It's like, hey, you know.
It's almost like that Grateful Dead kind of following.
Yeah.
You know, like, only they wear wings.
It sometimes has that Grateful Dead appearance, except less patchouli oil, better shoes.
At her core, Tori Amos remains the same as she ever was. An artist who strips herself bare through music while cloaking herself in enough mystery to keep fans coming back for more.
That's what artists do. They make art, and the ones that enjoy performing, and she loves performing, they'll perform until their last dying breath.
She's learned to enjoy herself. You have to learn that. That's it. You have to learn to be able to enjoy what you have. And she's now enjoying what she has. She's learning to enjoy it.
That changes every day, really. Some days I'm chasing my tail. Some days it's just out there, curling, purring.
She battled depression, lived as a hermit, and spoke only through her music. Get the real story behind Paula Cole on Paula Cole Behind the Music 2, the next generation of rock and roll stories, tonight at 9/8 Central, only on VH1.